Welcome back. On today's episode, I will be discussing some of the updates we've received so far through free agency starting yesterday, and some of the trades that teams have made, and where I think some of the bigger name stars could end up going, including where LeBron could go, and my thoughts on a really disastrous Lakers offseason, I'd say, so far. So stay tuned after the break. Welcome back. So I'm sure, as you're aware, Kawhi Leonard was traded back to Toronto. John Morant was traded to Portland. And now today, Walker Kessler is being traded to the Lakers in a sign-in trade with Utah. Those are probably the three big trades we've seen so far through the offseason. And I'll be honest, I don't really love any of them. I think the John Morant trade to Portland, I really do not like. I understand the philosophy of, in the NBA, you need special players. And when John Morant was healthy and wasn't getting suspended, he was a special player. And obviously, you did not give up very much in the trade. So I get the idea of, buying low and selling high on a guy. But you already have so many guards. Jeremy Grant had a bad contract and he's nothing special, but he gave you some shooting. You now have even less shooting than you did before. Portland's downfall last year was they just could not hit a three to save their life. They were a pretty elite defensive team towards the end of the season. Donovan Clingan's one of the best shot blockers in the league. Tumani Kamara is an excellent perimeter defender. Drew Holiday's very good. I think Scoot Henderson struggles defensively, but I think he has a really high upside on the defensive end. I think we saw a little bit of that in the Spurs series. Denny's not an awful defender. He has good size. Shaden Sharp, he leaves a lot to be desired defensively, but at least he's an athletic guy with some length. We'll see what happens to Matisse Thybulle, but he was a good defender. So on the defensive end of the court, I thought they were pretty solid. Now I think they're going to have, they're not going to be very great. I mean, Jeremy Grant was a pretty good defender. Now you're going to have Damian Lillard, who is one of probably the two worst defenders in the league, maybe alongside Trae Young. John Morant's not a good defender. I don't really see how they fit together on the offensive end of the court either. Damian Lillard needs to have the ball in his hands, and he needs to shoot a lot, or else he's offering you nothing defensively. I already don't like having to have Lillard taking up a lot of the offense and a lot of the possession, given I think Deni Avdija has all NBA potential, and he needs the ball in his hands. He needs to constantly be putting pressure on the defense with his drives, getting to the foul line. And he's a fairly high usage rate dependent player. He needs the ball a lot. He needs to shoot a lot. Lillard, I don't really think he's going to be a great catch and shoot type of player, an off ball player. Maybe at times, I think he'll be okay there, but I don't think he's like a Curry who you want to run off a bunch of off ball screens and back cutting. And I just think that's not really his game, especially coming off a torn Achilles at this stage in his career. I think he's probably going to want a lot of high pick and roll with the ball in his hands where he's dictating the offense. So I'd love to bring him off the bench. I know you probably can't get him to do that, which is part of the reason why I didn't love bringing him back. Now adding John Morant into this mix, he has to have the ball in his hands. He's not good defensively. He's an awful shooter. He can't shoot to save his life. So you can't have him off ball, or else the defense will help and pack the paint, and then there'll be even less room to drive for Deni Avdija and guys like Shaden Sharp or Scoot Henderson, some of your athletic guards who need to get to the basket. So John Morant's going to have the ball in his hands. So I just not see how Lillard and John Morant could play together. And the earlier reporting is that they're going to be the starting backcourt, which I just think is insane. Drew Holiday, I know he's expensive for his age, but I still think he's a valuable player. He gives you something defensively. He shot the ball pretty well. Scoot Henderson, I think it's probably fair to say now, even though I've been a kind of a long defender of him and have held Scoot Henderson stock for a while, I think it's fair to say he's probably not going to be the All-NBA guy or even like a consistent All-Star that we thought he could once be. Maybe he can get to an All-Star game here and there eventually, but he's just not consistent enough. He doesn't have the bounce I thought he would. He's really fast, but he doesn't have the great vertical hops I think it seemed like he did coming into the league. His shooting's starting to come around, so I think he's still very worthwhile kind of project. And I don't understand why we're now hampering his development and getting rid of his minutes to give to John Morant when I just don't think John Morant was a player you need. And you can't really rely on him and trust him to stay healthy, number one, which is honestly the biggest issue is he's never on the court. Um, and I know Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp, neither of them are consistently or healthy. So, if you're going to make the argument you just need strength in numbers here, maybe it'll work that way, where none of these guys are ever healthy, so you never have to deal with the log jam of guards who need to have the ball in their hands a lot. But I just think if you're building a team, assuming some of your players are going to be healthy or unavailable, I just don't know how high your ceiling is really. And John Morant's only here for 2 years potentially, but these are big years for Scoot's development, and he's now going to be I don't even see he's going to get like maybe 20 minutes a game, maybe. Like, how are you going to get him minutes? Shaden Sharp is frustrating. He's not healthy. I want him to be a far better defender than he is with his athleticism. His shooting's still not where you like it, but it looks good. He's playing really well before he got hurt last year. I just would have preferred letting Scoot and Shaden and Denny Avdia be the young backcourt with Lillard even potentially as your if he had to start, so be it. He's a veteran. He could maybe teach Scoot Henderson some stuff, and then drive Drew Holiday, who I'm sure will be happy coming off the bench potentially, be your backcourt. But now adding John Morant into this, uh, and the rumors of Lillard and John Morant starting together, so now you're going to have to bring Shaden and Scoot Henderson off the bench potentially, starting with Drew Holiday maybe. That seems bizarre to me. I think probably if you're going to start Ja and Lillard, maybe start. I don't think you can start Scoot. I just think you have size there. So maybe you have to go Shaden Sharp and then bring Drew Holiday off the bench. I don't know. They have a coach who's on a non-guaranteed contract. So he's going to be just trying to save his job next year because they have this dumbass owner who's too cheap to pay for a new arena or anything. I don't know. That's not a great trade. I don't really know what they're doing. I'm happy that they're not trading all their young players or draft picks for Jaylen Brown. But now that you went all in on John Morant, I feel like you might have to go trade some of these younger guards because Scoot Henderson's not going to develop. He's not going to be on the court. I don't know how much Shaden Sharp's going to get to play. I'm still pretty high in both of them. I still think they both have like all-star potential in them. But if they're not going to play, you're going to have to move them. And, that's frustrating because I just don't think the team you have right now with John Morant and Damian Lillard being your stars is really going to lead you very far. I think this is Denny Avdia's team, and he's not going to have the ball in his hands as much now. And your young guards aren't going to be developed, who I think they probably would have been better complementary pieces around Denny Avdia than Lillard and John Morant are. And, Tumani Kamara is really going to have to improve from the three-point line. He's one of the best defenders in the league already, and a pretty good rebounder. So if he can add even a couple percentage points to his three-point shooting, especially in the corners, I think he'll be a really valuable piece for them because they're going to need some size and defense now with the trades they've made. I'm happy they're keeping Donovan Clingan and not trading him. I think he's one of the best young bigs in the league. He's an incredible shot blocker. He moves better than you'd think for his size. So that's encouraging. I like Robert Williams coming back. I mean, we got lucky with a pretty healthy year last year from him, and he historically plays like 40 games a year. So I'm a bit worried. Last year was a bit of a mirage, and he's probably going to end up missing quite a few games. But if that corner three he was making and hitting in the playoffs, shooting and making in the playoffs, if that's like a real thing and consistently he can hit like one or two corner threes a game, I think he's be really valuable. He's an incredible athlete. He's a great shot blocker. He's a great lob threat. I really like their center. Those are like a 1-2 punch at the center position. I like that. I really thought this team, and still do in some ways, think this team has a lot of good pieces and a lot of good young pieces. I mean, Denny Avdia is still super young. He can still get better. I just worry that this is going to kind of hamper development. And now your only way out of this is trading some of these younger players to go get a more proven star, which I just don't think you have the type of upside right now to go beat a Spurs or a Thunder team. So why not build with your younger players and see how that plays out and keep your powder dry with some of your picks and your younger players to see what comes available in the future. So I didn't love the trade, even though they didn't give a whole lot up. It's more I just don't see the direction they're going in. John Morant has not shown he's a very great teammate. Um, I I feel like you can't really play him to close the game. I feel like he has to be on the bench, and I just don't know how he's going to take that. Like, I don't think he's going to willingly be like, "Yeah, I'll come out at the 4-minute mark, because you guys don't trust me to have the ball in my hands at the end of the game." I just don't really see that going very well. So I'm worried about the chemistry there, the locker room dynamics. The coach doesn't even have a full contract, so he has no security. He's I don't think he's going to be able to put any forward thought into like what's better for the long term success of this team and these players. Given he has 1 year basically to win as many games as possible, and I just don't think that's going to lead to long term success for Portland. So I don't love that trade. Um, what the Raptors did in trading for Kawhi, and it looks like they're now going to give him a pretty big extension and giving up first round picks years from now, far after Kawhi Leonard retires, after the new anti-tanking rules in the NBA, which are in place until 2029, those rules will be up for renewal or they'll, rescind those rules or change the rules. We don't know how valuable those 2030 picks are. A lot of the more competent, well-run teams are just straight up refusing to even consider trading their future 2030 picks because those picks could be infinitely more valuable than they are right now in the new, anti-tanking rules. So I don't like that for the Raptors. I don't really know what he gets you now. He had a remarkably healthy season last year, and I'm as big of a Kawhi Leonard fan as anyone. When he's healthy, I really believed he was better than Kevin Durant in like the 17, 18 years, or at least right there. I thought he was the second best player in the league at times. So I love Kawhi. I think he's awesome. Last year he was great even, but he's getting older. You can't really assume he's going to be healthy again. And what else you have in this team that's going to make you better than the Celtics or better than the Knicks or better than let's see what Cleveland does. I, I just don't know, or Detroit. So I don't love it. I feel like they're trying to kind of recapture the magic they had in 2019 with that trade, and I just don't think Kawhi is the same player he was then. And I also think the East is better now um, than that year, the year after LeBron left to go to the Lakers. So there was no dominant team in the East that year. I don't love that trade. I think they gave up a lot for the Clippers. I think that's probably a smart move. They're trying to build. They're going younger, which is smart. Um, we'll see what any penalties that come from the Kawhi Leonard, Steve Ballmer potential kind of averting the salary cap payments. If there's any penalty that the NBA brings forth with them, but I think overall their future is pretty bright. I like the good young players they got. This was never going to work out. The Kawhi Leonard, Paul George era was an abject disaster. The Paul George trade might be the worst trade in NBA history. They gave up Shea, who might be the best player in the world, and a million picks that they're still having to give up to Oklahoma City. They basically rebuilt the Thunder in that trade. And I think moving off of that disastrous era is probably smart. So for that, I like from the Clippers' perspective in that trade. Now for the Lakers, who just did a sign and trade for Walker Kessler from Utah. This trade reeked of desperation. The Lakers' actions reeks of desperation. They have shown over years and years now, Rob Pelinka, the GM, has shown zero ability to really ever, outside of the Luka Doncic trade, which pretty much just fell in his lap, where Nico Harrison's, his own stupidity, basically his stupidity outshined Rob Pelinka's and handed him Luka Doncic. Rob Pelinka never, ever gets any team-friendly contract done. Nothing ever breaks in the direction of the franchise. He gives out he way overpays for players. He constantly is giving out these player options, which are always picked up, which really hampers your ability to move off of them because they're bad contracts, they're negative value. You just gave up all your basically tradable picks. I think you can do one more pick swap at some point down the road, but you basically just gave up all your future assets in this trade for Walker Kessler. You gave him a pretty big salary, and now you're stuck with Jared Vanderbilt money. You can't move off Jake Laravia as easily. You can't move off Dalton Connect as easily. This is your team now. You have Quentin Grimes on a 4-year, $60 million deal with a player option. Um, you're not going to be able to move off him. I think you overpaid for him. You overpaid for that Mamu guy. I don't even want to try to pronounce his last name. So it was a pretty good stretch 5, but 4 years, 52, I believe you gave him with a player option. You're not going to be able to move off that. That's a negative value contract. Colin Sexton, you used one of your exceptions on him. Why? You already have a lot of shot creating guards. You need wings. You need big athletic wings who can defend and shoot. The problem is your only defender, like Jared Vanderbilt, he can't shoot. And all your players who can shoot are tiny. And Quentin Grimes, he's not a wing. He's like 6'4". He's not going to be able to guard these big athletic wings in the West. This team makes no sense. They now have zero flexibility moving forward. Walker Kessler played like 4 games last year. He's shown zero ability to stay healthy. Bigs don't get healthier as they get older. He's only like 23 and he's already banged up. I hate this offseason. I actually understand the theory of moving off LeBron if this was a better, more functional franchise and wanting to, build around your younger star in Luka Doncic and trying to build a team that fits around him. But you haven't. This team makes no sense. You're not going to have the defense required to win. Your shooting is pretty streaky still. You have no size on the perimeter outside of Luka, but he's not a great athlete. LeBron was your best athlete last year and would still be the best athlete on this team. So you do not have any athleticism, which watching those Thunder and Spurs series, clearly you need some hyper athletic guys to play. And I don't think Adu Thiero is going to progress enough to be able to play, playoff minutes. I don't think Cam Carr will be relied upon to play playoff minutes. So I don't think you have any athleticism. And you're now stuck. This is what you went all in on. Walker Kessler, who, when he's healthy, sure, is like a top 3 rim protector in the league. He's as good as it gets outside of Wemby, but he's never available. That's it. I think Austin Reeves' contract I think you way overpaid for that. I don't think you're going to be able to move off of him. I think that's negative money now. I don't think he's good enough to be the second best player on a championship team. I don't think you're better than Minnesota. Maybe you can beat them, but I don't think you're a whole lot better than Denver. I don't think you're better than, I know you're not better than the Spurs or Thunder. So maybe you're the 5th best team in the West. I mean, let's see if LeBron signs with the Warriors. I like that Warriors team more than this Lakers team. I think they had the worst offseason really of anyone. This was just an epic fail. Because now you don't have LeBron to blame it on. Rob Pelinka can't blame LeBron and Rich Paul and Clutch Sports for all of the fails. This is your big move. You went all in on Walker Kessler. It's 100% on you now. And you have no flexibility moving forward. I think there's a legitimate argument he's the worst GM in the league, despite pulling off the Luka Doncic trade. He just never, ever finds value in these trades. He's always acting out of desperation. They're never in a position of strength where they're getting the benefit of the doubt in a trade, where they're holding someone's feet over the fire. They always have a gun to their head whenever they're trying to complete transactions. And I think we saw that again. So I am not high on their future whatsoever. I think in terms of what I think LeBron should do, ultimately, I think probably he's going to go to Golden State in all likelihood. And obviously the big thing there is going to be health. But I just think they're going to match up better against these elite teams in the West than the Lakers are. So ultimately, I just think LeBron fared better out of this breakup than the Lakers did. Because in any of those series, you're going to have LeBron, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green, who are going to have as high of a basketball IQ as any team's ever had. Steve Kerr is a great coach. They're gonna if they can stay healthy in the playoffs, they're gonna find some advantage offensively in these games. They're gonna be able to get something going, even against the elite Spurs and the Thunder defenses. Now, I think Spurs and Thunder will beat them. Don't get me wrong, especially the Spurs. I think the Spurs next year are going to be incredible. Um, I think they're going to go to a whole new level, and they're just going to be a ferociously horrifying team to play against. But it really against anyone else. I just think this Warriors team with the amount of basketball knowledge they're going to have at their disposal. I just think they're going to get good shots, especially in the playoffs when the game slows down and it's harder to create shots. I like what the Warriors are going to be able to do. Um, I think Steph and LeBron play very well together. We'll see what they do with Jimmy Butler. I know they said they're not going to trade him. I don't think Butler makes a whole lot of sense if LeBron goes to the Warriors. I think they probably want, I think they might want more shooting, a more athletic, younger 3 and D wing, and they still have some picks to trade. I would consider trading Jimmy Butler for a more athletic, younger perimeter wing player. And I think if they can pull that off, um, I'd consider like a Trey Murphy. Jimmy Butler's on an expiring contract. I know Pelicans, New Orleans have convinced themselves that they're competing and that they're better than they are, and they have no seemingly knowledge of what their own players' value is around the league. They want like a ridiculously high return for some of these players that just aren't that valuable. But if the Warriors go all in and go try to trade for like Trey Murphy from New Orleans, I think they could probably make this work money wise. They'll probably have to take someone, some bad money back, but I think he'd be a good addition. I think if Warriors can go into the league or into the season and can find some trade partner for Jimmy Butler and bring back some shooting with a little more athleticism on the perimeter, they should be really good. Because between Porzingis, who's never healthy, but when he is, he's still a pretty good shot rim protector. He's good around the rim. He can finish around the rim. Al Horford still shot the ball pretty well last year. He's still a pretty smart player. I like the bigs they have there. Quentin Post can stretch the floor. Draymond is obviously still an incredible defender. I like the size they have. Now I think they just need a little more shot creating on the outside. Obviously, LeBron and Curry are going to be incredible at that, but if they miss a game, they're going to be a bit short. A lot of pressure is going to fall on the other one. And if Curry's out, they're just not going to have the shooting. And if LeBron's out, they're not going to have the athleticism, which is why I think they have to try to find some athletic guy who can hit threes, or else they're just going to be so dependent on these older players. But they do have good role players. Like, Melton's coming back, I believe. I think I just saw that. He's a pretty good player. He's not quite what he was before the injury, but he gives you something in the backcourt. I like E. Santos. He's a smart player who defends pretty hard. He works hard. He could shoot a little bit. Pods, he's a fun player. He's going to fight his ass off defensively. His shooting's getting better. So I'm pretty high on that. I really think that's LeBron's best option here. I don't think going back to Cleveland makes any sense really at all. I just don't. What is that team going to do? You want to go play James Harden and Donovan Mitchell? They're not winning. I don't think they're going to beat the Celtics in the East. I don't know if, I think they could probably beat the Knicks with LeBron, but I don't think they're going to beat the Celtics. The Miami, I think, is not. I think Miami has I think there's a better chance Miami's awful than they are winning the title next year. I think they're going to be a solid 6 or 7 seed in the East. I love Giannis. I just don't trust him to be able to stay healthy. Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be the only guy in the entire team who can shoot the ball from the perimeter, and he's old. I think they're going to struggle offensively. Defensively, they have a chance to be incredible, but I don't think LeBron is a great fit there. I don't think they have the players that LeBron wants or needs to play around at this point in his career. So Miami doesn't make sense unless he's going to go sign some random city like San Antonio, where I think he'd actually be a perfect fit there. It's like exactly what they need. I don't think that makes sense. I don't think Minnesota makes a whole lot of sense. I don't think you want to go sign up and live in Minnesota if you're LeBron. It's much easier to live in San Francisco and fly back home every night to LA than is Minnesota where it's cold as hell. You have to play with a mellow ball. You're going to probably lose brain cells every time you lace that up and go play with him. Anthony Edwards, he's a great player, but he seems like a pain in the ass to play with in the playoffs. He's very stubborn. Um, they're not going to beat San Antonio or Oklahoma City. So I really think Golden State's kind of the only team that makes a whole lot of sense for LeBron to go to. And I think they have a puncher's chance against anyone really in the West outside of probably the Spurs or the Thunder. They could probably be a third best team. And then who knows? Get into those series healthy, especially against the Thunder. I could see, you know, maybe someone gets hurt. Maybe Shea twists an ankle. Maybe, Chet, he's been injury prone. Maybe he gets hurt. And then maybe you can wind back up in the finals like the Warriors did in 22, when I don't think they were anywhere close to being the best team or deserving of winning that championship. But things broke their way. Obviously the Denver got banged up, so they didn't have to face that team. Celtics were too young. And yeah, Warriors were able to get a championship. So, we'll see. I don't think that'll happen, but I think it'll at least be fun and exciting. I think all the players will have fun playing together. I think it definitely makes the most sense to go to the Warriors. But I want to close this by discussing, I really think the Spurs next year are going to be like incredible. There's been a lot of negativity coming out of the finals run. It was kind of the vibe where if they just ended up losing to the Thunder and like game 7, all of this negativity wouldn't really exist. It's kind of like the Patriots getting the Super Bowl last year when they got their asses kicked by the Seahawks. I've always been down on Drake May. I don't think he's as great as people think. I mean, he's obviously a really good quarterback, but I don't think he's like a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson level talent, and certainly not like a Patrick Mahomes or Brady type guy. But people are way higher on him before going in the Super Bowl. Will Campbell, their left tackle, I think a lot of people had concerns about his short arms and everything going in to the season. But then once they got into the Super Bowl, it was a disaster. And now everyone's like freaking out. So I think New England probably would, in hindsight, prefer just have lost to Denver in that weird snow game and not have to have dealt with the disaster that was the Super Bowl where they just weren't good enough to win. San Antonio, I think, was the better team. I don't care what anyone tells me. I don't think that New York team was very special. San Antonio was clearly the better team. They were just too young and they blew it every time. It is what it is. That happens to young players. But Wemby went from like being the most loved, everyone loves Wemby guy to being outside of like LeBron. He's probably the most hated player in the NBA now, which I love both of them. So, it's fun to get to root for guys who often cause other people pain. That's enjoyable. So I'm sure Wemby will have, I'll be rooting for him to come back, kick everyone's ass next year. But obviously the conversation around De'Aaron Fox, I think, has gotten a little ridiculous. He was injured. He struggled. He had a bad playoff run. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think Mitch Johnson did an incredibly poor job coaching that. I think he'll get better. I think they'll learn from that. Dylan Harper, I imagine, is going to get better. I think he'll start. They'll have to start. Maybe they have to start 3 guards, even though that might be a little weird. They might have to move like Devin Vassell to the bench or something and have him come off the bench. I think Stephon Castle is probably going to get slightly better from the 3-point line. I love the contract they got Champagny on. I believe he's on $15 million a year now. I believe like a 3-year, $45 million deal? That's a great value for him. $15 million for him is not a lot per year. Devin Vassell, I love him. I think he's a much better defender than I even thought he was. I don't love the contract bringing Harrison Barnes back at $8 million. I really think they should go after Rui. I think the Lakers can't really afford to keep Rui anymore. And adding one more guy who is an elite shooter. I mean, Rui's probably the best shooter in the league at his size. He's shooting like upwards of 40% from 3 the last couple seasons. And the Spurs are already so great defensively. And their guards rebound at such a high level, and they have so many bigs now. They just drafted Terrence Reed and Jaden from Kentucky, where I think both of them could have a real impact and are going to be really good rebounders. I don't think Rui's deficiencies in terms of cleaning up the glass and his perimeter defense, I don't think that's really going to matter. They just need him to stand around and shoot threes. If they can add him, I think this has been just an incredible offseason. And the Spurs next year could really have a chance of being one of the best teams like ever. Because I think Wemby's going to have to play a lot more in the regular season, a lot more minutes per game, because he just wore down in the playoffs. He could not handle 35 plus minute games. And why would he be able to? They never played him that. He went out at like 29 minutes in the regular season. You have to build up his endurance. And I think next year they're going to have to be, you know, they're going to have to keep that in mind and play him more in some of these games, which I think is only going to make them more dominant. Um, I just love the depth. Keldon Johnson, he maybe hopefully he can have a better playoff run there. Uh, I think Carter Bryant is going to get better. I think his shooting is going to improve. His shot looks good. He might put on even more weight, and he'll be able to guard some of these bigger players and play a small ball four role more. I'm just really high on the Spurs team. I think there's so much young talent. I love the draft picks. Um, yeah, I think people are really the negativity surrounding the Spurs, not just from like New York fans who don't like them, but the people thinking like this is going to be like a problem, and like the Spurs were found out and they were exposed. Uh, I think they're going to be awesome. I think they addressed most of their concerns in the offseason. I'm sure Wemby's putting in a lot of work. He's going to try to come up with some shot, some go-to shot at the end of the games. But I think Dylan Harper has to be their closing guy. Um, and he's looks like one of the best young guards we've ever seen. So I imagine he'll get better and he'll be ready to go next season. I like that they added more size in the front court in order to kind of. I would be really curious to see if they throw out a two big lineup where they play a center along with Wemby, uh, someone who's a little stronger who can kind of protect, especially at the end of these games when they have to rebound free throw attempts. You cannot have Wemby stand underneath the basket. He will get pushed off. It's impossible. He cannot put on enough weight at his size where he's not going to lose a center of gravity battle and he's always going to get shoved underneath the basket. They need to have a bigger, stronger center next to him uh, to help body up some of these bigger, stronger centers so he can use his length and clean up the glass, which is exactly what they did this summer, where they addressed that issue. So I think they're very well run. I think they know what they want to do. And I think they're going to come back next year and just destroy everybody. So I'm letting you know right now, they're my title pick. And no team, I don't think, can really do anything to change the balance power in the league, but nothing anyone's done so far certainly has changed that. So thank you for listening. I'll be back next Tuesday. We'll see other big changes in the NBA. Obviously, the World Cup's happening. Some big games happening there. We'll see. I'm sure some negative political news will happen. So stay tuned.